Thank you, Matt, and good afternoon to everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. Welcome to the 2025 Iowa Football Media Day. So, it's just good to get started again, obviously, and, begin the 27th year back here. And really every year it's the same thing, same mix of eagerness, if you will, anxiousness and optimism. And probably the eagerness comes as much from anything, just the work ethic and attitude of this team's been strong. Going back to January, and they've continued that, so that part's good. Anxiousness, every year, you have the unknown, certainly, and that's a fun part of it, but also, you're just always curious to see how things are going to materialize, how they're going to come together, and we're in that process now. And then the optimism, I think, just comes from the fact, again, we've got a roster, I think we're got a good amount of veterans. We've lost some real key veterans over the last couple of years, but a good group of veterans right now, and a strong group of guys in the middle group maybe that haven't played a lot, but I think are ready to take that next step. And then, you always got the younger guys as well. So, it's a fluid time right now, fluid competition going on during camp like you'd expect. And it's just kind of fun to watch it and see how it's all going to pull together. So, and that really is, the nature of preseason. That's the beauty of it. It's when you're working through the bumps, working through the ups and downs that come with, pretty competitive practices, and see how things go. So we're about 40% through right now. And, like every year, it's demanding on the players physically, but demanding on them mentally, and I think emotionally as well. We've had good weather up until today, got a little warm, that's good. And, I think it's going to be that way here for a while, so that's great. But, every group out there is kind of a different study, if you will. Start with the quarterback, so I'll just kind of highlight that one. In terms of the newness, we've got, 3 guys that are relatively new to the program, getting all the reps right now, basically. And, 2 of those guys weren't even here in the spring. So Mark was here in the spring but wasn't practicing in the spring, so I'll rephrase that. So it's just, it's good to see how they're fitting in, and then some other groups are a little bit more veteran, but interesting to see how they're working. And I think, so again, so far so good with that. And just kind of go there. And to some extent, talking about the quarterbacks, Jimmy Sullivan's in the same boat. He was here last spring, but, should have been in high school. And, it was going 100 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour for him. So fun for things to slow down for him as well. But, bottom line is this, like every position right now, we're looking at them all and just curious to see how they're going to evolve. And there's, a lot of different stories there. And the bottom line is, it's all about how things come together here over the next 3+ weeks. And with this team, I think it's going to be a fluid process, probably even into the season. So that's certainly not a bad thing. We've got several points of emphasis you're always trying to emphasize in camp, and I think the single biggest thing, and I'm sure we're not unique in this, but, really to do anything difficult to win in this conference, it's not easy. Do anything difficult, it really requires, good focus on things that are important and when they need to be there. And, our guys are in college, they're going to school, they've got social lives, they play football. So they've all got a lot going on. Right now, this is a pure time where, we've got them pretty much a captive audience. So, them learning how to really focus on what's important, that's important. And then the other, contingent, they've always been college athletes and college students, but the biggest difference now is just this new era, with the free agency, salary cap, all that stuff, revenue sharing. It's a little bit different world, and it takes a little different level of maturity, I think, for everybody to handle that. And, so it's one more challenge. But that's really, as much as anything, the biggest, I think, challenge out there. And part of our job as coaches is to try to help those guys filter through stuff that's not important and really be able to focus on what does count. So that's kind of, an ongoing process as well. Then last but not least, just touch on real quickly, I know you guys probably got releases on this, but a couple staff things that have happened over the last 2 months or so. Paul Federici has retired. And I just want to start out by having had a chance to publicly acknowledge him and thank him for all the contributions he's made in 2+ decades here. Paul came here as our head trainer 20-some years ago and did an unbelievably great job at that in that role. And the only bad thing about him moving to operations was, you lose a really good guy in the medical department. Luckily, we've had really good people, think about Russ and people like that taking over for him, Cammy. So, but Paul's made a lot of certainly valuable contributions. Did a great job in a really challenging role, if you will. And so certainly want to wish him and Teddy all the best. They're down in Arizona. somebody told me yesterday it's hotter there than we'd even dream about being here. So hope he likes hot weather. Ben Hansen will take his role. Ben will be assistant AD, director of ops for us moving forward. Ben's been with us over 10 years. Paul's done a great job mentoring him, and Ben is an outstanding mentee. He's been qualified to probably have that job for years now. Fortunately, he's stuck with us, and so it's been really kind of a seamless transition. And again, I thank Paul for helping facilitate that, and Ben's already doing a great job. Ireland Hostetler is going to move over from recruiting along with Austin Showalter. He's been a quality control guy, GA quality control guy. They're going to move into operations and work primarily in that area. Austin will still do special projects for me and football-related work that way. He's still dabbling in that, but I think that gives us a real strong department there. And then the other probably noteworthy thing at this point, Jason Manson has transitioned into football full-time. So he's one of the analysts on the offensive side, gives him a chance to really immerse himself in that. Sam Brinks, who's been his assistant, is going to move up into the director of ops role, or player development, I'm sorry. And then Noah Shannon is back with us. He was going to be a GA or a student assistant, and all the titles are different now because of the new rules. But long story short, Noah's going to fill Sam's role in player development. So he and Sam will pair up just like Jason and Sam did previously. And then Noah's also going to work in the football realm of things. So it's his first year in this side of the ball instead of being a player. And I'm not sure he knows exactly where he wants to go professionally. This will give him a good opportunity to see both sides and kind of develop what he wants, or an idea of what he wants to do as he moves forward. So feel really good about that. And then the last thing, just in the next week or two, our recruiting department under Tyler Barnes, it's been reshaped a little bit and reconfigured, and we're filling a void, obviously, with Ireland moving over. We lost a really quality person there, but I think we're really close to making an announcement there and feel really good about the way things have shaped up. So I think we're in good shape there. And just, briefly again, 40% into it. It's been a positive start. The guys are doing a good job. They're attentive, working hard, doing a good job in meetings and, all those types of things. So, we're hardly halfway there, but it'll be good for them tomorrow to be out there in the stadium. Not that it's going to be packed or anything like that, but for some of the younger guys especially, that'll be a big deal for them. And, it's just good to change up things in camp a little bit every now and then. And then beyond that, just the Kids Day concept. I think we're in year 11, 12, 13, something like that. And it's a win-win situation. Again, I'm glad I'm not on the judging panel who has to pick out who the 12 captains are. I hate that job. I would want to be nameless, like NCAA people, the way they make their decisions. But anyway, so it's just a tough job, but what a great way to celebrate a lot of really good stories and tremendous people. So we'll all look forward to that, and the seniors will have a chance to spend time with them in the weight room and swarm with them out on the field. So it's all good, and it's kind of like the wave, just something everybody can feel good about. So a lot of work to do, obviously 3 weeks out, but just happy to be working at it. So I'll throw it out for questions.
Chad likes to go Des Moines Register on your right. Last year, Kids Day, this time of year, quarterback play was looking pretty rough, and you kind of said that was pretty indicative of how Cade and others had played. I guess where do you feel like Mark, how much further along do you feel like the passing game is? Is Mark where you want him to be? And then the other two guys, I assume, are Brown and Hicklinski that you're saying are getting most of the reps?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's those three guys plus Sullivan are like the 1, 2, 3, 4. Jackson's been fighting an illness and kind of an unusual one. You think you've seen everything. You never have 27 years into it. First time he's got it's a hernia that's affected his appetite, and it's just I feel really bad for him. He's struggling to eat and struggling to hold his weight. So it's going to be a long road, but they're going to get it cleared up and all that type of thing. But that's kind of taking him out of the equation for a little bit. But no, it's been good. And, to me, ever since Spencer got hurt out there in November 22, it's been a bumpy road. And nobody's fault, just the way it's been. And that's not the only spot. It's more than, it's everything combined, quite frankly. But as I said last year at this time, my experience is if we have a good offensive line here, good quarterback play, we've got a chance. And I think the good news is I think we have a chance to have both those things. And beyond that, I think our supporting cast is a little bit better balanced and more experienced than it's been. The receivers, good mix of old and young, kind of like our whole team. But They're probably a good illustration of that, and most importantly, they've been practicing pretty well. So, yeah, we're not there yet, but you're starting to see some signs. 2 nights ago, saw some things that were really encouraging. It was Wednesday night, and then this morning, a couple plays where, hey, maybe we can make some tough plays on third down, those kinds of things. And it's just things that keep drives going, and that's how you score points, all those types of things. So we're not there yet, but at least I think we're moving in the right direction.
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. Kirk, I mean, how's Brian Allen been progressing since over the course of the summer? And I guess where would you kind of assess where the defensive line is right now and the kind of depth that you kind of see them having?
The first guy you mentioned was
Brian Allen.
Yeah, Brian's doing well. He's like Mark. He couldn't do anything in the spring, so he's working through that. That's one thing we were talking about this. I mean, at all levels, a pro player who's played 10 years successfully, that type of thing, they can miss some time typically and come back and go. But even the best players, like if they don't practice, it's not the same. So you can imagine anybody in college, and that's Mark and Brian too. Their challenge is not being out there in the spring. It does make a difference, just in terms of being working at it. His attitude's been great. He's been out there every day, fully healthy. So he's getting there. And I like the competition we're seeing on the defensive line. Unfortunately, Pitt's not working. Jeremiah still out. He's probably a couple weeks away from being back, but it's given other guys an opportunity to work. Both Pace and Hawthorne are doing a good job in there, and Will's done a good job. So Hubert. Those guys are competing. They're improving, and I think we'll be okay there. But we're not there yet.
Hey, Kirk, Elliot Clough,
Yeah,
Hawkeye Insider, 24/7 Sports. I know you were already asked about Mark, but a lot of the conversation over the last few months has been that you've seen who he is as a person, but haven't been able to see him take live reps yet. I guess, what are your impressions so far of him specifically?
Well, you can ask him about his first day. He was 6 out of 9. That's the good news. I won't say how that 6 got broken down. I'll let him do that. But again, he just he made some throws like, oh, really? And but that again, as his first day, he hadn't thrown with the team, and the improvement from day 1 to day 9 is just not surprising, but it's just I think we're starting to see him in a comfort zone, operating the way you like to, and pulling the ball down. I mean, one thing I can tell you, I've seen him pull the ball down and run, which is not unusual for quarterbacks. Some can't do it, but he can run and keep his eyes down the field. That's a good trait, and he's demonstrated he can do that. So yeah, he looks more comfortable with each day, and everybody around him is more comfortable, and he acts like a veteran guy, and that's that's something you can't hand to anybody, is that experience. So doing a good job there, and I think I mentioned at the Big Ten media deal, one thing we did get to see this summer, because he really couldn't do anything competitive in the spring, we did get to see him in Ray times a lot of the stuff we do, some certain timings and certain moving things, 10 yards, jumping, shuttles, things like that. And he's a sneakily good athlete. Like, he really tested out very well in all the groups, of all the guys in his group, his classification, if you will. So, that's a good thing to have if you're a quarterback. But the most important thing is, can you pull the team together, lead them, and get up there and get the ball snapped and then do something productively. And he's coming along real well. And Hank is doing the same thing. You could tell Hank's been out there in the spring, so he's moving along pretty good too. And Jeremy's bringing up the rear there with that group.
Scott Docterman with The Athletic. Kirk, your offensive line was one of the sneakier good offensive lines in the country last year. You averaged almost 200 yards a game rushing. Only cut your sacks down to 16 last year. But you lost a couple of guys to the draft. And what is, right now, how do you feel about your offensive line, and where does the left tackle competition stand, because you brought in a Division II All-American?
I'll go backwards in order, just wide open, the tackle spot and the guard spot. And we're hoping to see good competition in August. You never know how it's going to go, but compared to April, to me, it's a much healthier competition, seeing the guys grow. And that's one of the great things about college football is just the changes. And I'll give you a quick, deviate for 1 second. Like, this revenue share stuff. And Scott Pioli was in here, I think, last week or this past week. You guys knew that. But, one big difference between the NFL and here, like in the NFL, you evaluate your team whenever your season ends, either in January or February. And that's pretty much how it is until you start the new season. In college, our guys change every period, in my opinion at least, you know, in the winter program, spring ball, there's 2 evaluations, and you go through the summer. And it's not overly telling, but it tells you something. And then ultimately, is it going to carry over to the field in August when you're actually playing football, not training? But we're seeing these guys really grow. And, you know, it's kind of the way it's been in the past. Like, our guys get better as they stay in the program and work if they're doing the right things. And I think we're seeing that with both, you know, the two main contestants are Trevor and Jack. And both those guys are way better than they were in December and way better than they were, in my opinion, in April. They're not there yet, but they're there. And then Bryce is a newcomer, and talked about, you know, like the 2 quarterbacks getting out there, especially Jeremy not being here in the spring. Bryce wasn't either. So he's a little slow off the ball, you know, a little, you know, because he's thinking right now, but he's trying his ass off, and he's got some good tools. So it's going to be a good, healthy competition, I think, and seeing some good things in the interior as well, you know, watching some guys grow there. So we're not there yet, but I think we have the opportunity to, you know, fill 2 big holes with Connor and Mason leaving. You know, those are big losses for us. But yeah, right now I'm, you know, semi-optimistic, but we're not there yet.
Coach, I think a natural segue from offensive line to be receiver. Big Ten Media Days, you kind of compared that group to where the offensive line was a year ago with progression. Yep. Has that continued into fall camp? What's the pecking order at the top? And then is Jarrett Bowie, is he healthy right now?
Yeah, he actually coincidentally just got like really cleared. He's been practicing but limited what he can do. He's had a fracture in his arm, but officially got cleared, I guess, 2 days ago. So he's progressing. I think we got 4 seniors right now. It's kind of snuck up on us, but although Weegen's debating this, I think he's going to play till he's 30. He's trying to be a junior, but anyway, I'd be okay with that. But they're a good group right now. The older guys are doing a good job, and then we've got younger guys coming up the ladder. So it's kind of too close to call right now, but they're all doing some good things, and we'll see what it looks like over 3 weeks. And you know, we're really not going to make too many big judgments until at least, you know, you start game prepping a little bit. Then you got to kind of start squeezing it down. But it's good, healthy competition, and that's encouraging.
Coach Ferentz, Dan Stacy, Sportscast Media and Mediapolis News. You got a really good field goal kicker coming back, and that's real important. Drew Stevens, he's up for the Groza Award. Have you talked to him about that, or has he talked to you about that? What's your feelings on that, and who's your number 1 running back going to be, you think, right now? How's the running back room coming?
No idea on that last one, and that's a good thing. I think the group's all working well, and they're doing a good job. So, and then, you know, regarding all these awards, and you know, Matt puts releases out, and they end up on my desk, and I look at them and then throw them in the recycle thing as fast as I can, because with all due respect, I mean, you know, it's like preseason rankings. Really nothing matters right now other than acknowledging where it is pertinent, acknowledging somebody who does have a resume, who's done something. And Drew, I think Drew's a great story. I mean, just all you got to do is look back the last 2 Novembers. And, you know, 2 years ago, he kicks 2 balls out of bounds on kickoffs in our last game. And, you know, we kick a Charlie Brown, you know, field goal that barely got over the goalpost from like 10 yards out to win the game. And then last year, I had no doubt in my mind he's going to drill that ball in the last game, and, you know, a year later. So I think that's kind of represented the growth of Drew. I really do. And just as a person, you know, and this stuff all goes together, in my opinion. He was so young when he showed up here. I mean, really young, physically and kind of emotionally. You know, he's just a high school guy. So where he is now compared to there, it's just night and day. And he's confident, but it's not a false bravado. It's because he's earned it. He works hard. He's just immaculate with his preparation. And that's how you typically guys perform well, is because they do all that hard work when they're supposed to. And, you know, and that he's done that. So, again, representative of what you hope a guy is going to be as a college football player. You know, he's done a great job. And it is nice to have an experienced kicker. That is nice. Really nice.
Hi, Kirk. On your right, Jack Lita with KCRG. It's the first time in a while you haven't had an all Big Ten linebacker returning. So if I'm just Monday morning quarterbacking, I see Harrell, Rexroth, and Shire, those seniors. First off, do you see those 3 seniors as the potential starters in week 1? And if so, what have they done to kind of encourage you as they're stepping into some brand new roles and some really big shoes to fill?
Yeah, so just like Higgins had big shoes and Nick did when he got here, that's part of football if you had good players. I do see, I'm assuming tomorrow when the ones go out there, those three guys will be in their respective positions. But that competition's wide open right now, and the challenge is a little different for everybody. Shar's, flashed at times. He's played great on special teams, but he's had some durability issues and dependability issues, injury-wise, which, nobody can do anything about that. But it's hard to be a great player at any position, especially linebacker if you can't stay on the field. He's been out there basically had stubbed his toe a little bit early in spring for a day or two, but he's been on the field ever since and doing really well. He's practicing at a high level. And, I think Harold's done the same thing. He's really done a good job. Jackson's doing a great job. But we've got some guys behind him that are really pressing and pushing. And, again, I know Pat's in the room here somewhere. I reference that 08 where Pat ended up starting in October. Maybe it was late September, but and Ricky Stanzi the same way. And that's always in the back of your mind. You just never know who's going to emerge. And I think, several positions along the board as we start. Obviously, August is going to help us determine things. But what really matters is what we do when the games start playing and how guys are playing there. So we'll keep an open mind, just keep playing guys. And what they do on special teams is important. Like because we've seen too many pictures of guys playing good special teams and then shifting into their respective positions and that carrying over. So, but yeah, all those guys have come down that same path. They've done a good job on special teams and anxious to see how it plays out. That's probably one of the biggest positions of intrigue, if you will.
Hey, Coach. Scott Rice for KCCI. Great to see you. Speaking of special teams, Caden Weegan obviously showed what he could do last year. Do you see your offense utilizing him more on offense, or is that a situation where you want to protect him?
Yeah, I was described. No, we're not trying to protect anybody. We're the quarterbacks. But, yeah, so, just the description on him was like a couple of years ago he went hard. We didn't know where he's going, mainly because he didn't know where he's going. And then, evolved into a really good special teams performer. And there's, at the start of last year, I don't mind telling you, I was a little, curious and anxious and whatever. And then, boy, he just played great as a return guy. And our goal for him is to take that now, carry that over to offense. And I think he's on that road. We'll see how it progresses. But he's done good things in camp already, some good things in spring. But he's better now than he was in the spring. And, the things that make him really good on as a return guy, obviously would tie into being a good receiver. He's fast, he's fearless, and it's just, getting all the details down, and I think he's really working hard to do that. So, yeah, we're hopeful that he'll be contributing a lot offensively.
Scott Docterman again with The Athletic. I wanted to ask you about Logan Jones. He's now, a sixth-year guy, but when you brought him in as a defensive tackle, kind of put him on the Tyler Linderbaum plan. It was up and down early in his career, but he always seemed to have that skill set that was capable of doing it. At what point did it click for him to where his immense physical gifts that he's been able to channel, and he can actually turn it into being one of the best, if not the best center coming into the country this year?
Probably a month or two later than it should have, and I take ownership in that. It is like Linderbaum, except I didn't screw Tyler's deal up. We did it in December. Got him over there, and he started practicing. So he basically got an extra spring practice at that position. I think that helped, make him more game ready the next fall. And unfortunately, we didn't make the move with Logan until spring. I think it was in January when he got back. But it just looked like we needed a little bit more help at that position. And he was a logical guy, so I take that probably retarded his progress and growth. I don't know how many weeks, but, it didn't take him long to get the feel for it. And he's really playing at a high level and practicing at a high level now. We got a couple of guys that are older, some of the 5th, 6th-year guys that came back, and they're all really practicing well. And that's encouraging. The guys up front are really setting the tempo for us.
Dirk Sossman, KDSN Denison. We have a young fella from the Carroll area, DJ Vanami. And he had some good news last month. I think our listeners are going to hear about that.
Yeah.
Some of his progress.
So he actually got good news previous to that last month, but it leaked out last month or whatever. We don't I don't have anybody jump out of a cake or something and say, here's your scholarship. My flair for the dramatics not so good. I think you guys know that. So, but, it's just like anything. Guys that work hard and are doing good things, they're hopefully we can reward them in some way. And DJ, we really were so pleased that he chose to come here because we really liked what we saw in high school. As you know, he wasn't a tight end there a bit. We thought he had a lot of the attributes of guys. In fact, I read an article that's kind of entertaining somewhere. Whatever you call those little boxes, on your iPad. Like, you go to Google something, there's all those little articles in there. There's one that caught my eye, but anyway, it was about tight ends. And the guy wrote it with all due respect, had no clue. He was talking about a guy we didn't recruit. And anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but anyway. But he cited, so we didn't recruit the guy. And the kid's a hell of a good kid, and he's a good player. But we just didn't feel like, he was a fit for us. But the ironic part was he cited the, tight end U stuff. And some of the guys he cited were Kittle, Laporta, who am I leaving out? Hawkinson maybe, but, Hawkinson had a couple of Big Ten offers. But, Kittle and Laporta. I mean, Kittle's going to Weber State and Laporta's going to Bowling Green. But point is, it's recruiting is individual for everybody. And it's not judging anybody else's judgment, but we thought we saw some traits in DJ that maybe were, and he's done nothing but just improve. And I don't know how ready he is to be a starter right now, but I could see him being a starter in the future here. He's worked hard. He's put weight on, good weight. He works extremely hard. Is competitive, tries to block, which some guys will or won't. And that was the question on TJ. And when TJ got here, we actually brought him to camp and made him try to block somebody. He was terrible, but at least he tried. So it was like, okay, this guy, he'll learn it, and he did. So I'm not saying DJ's going to end up like TJ. Well, this is confusing. But anyway, but he's a really positive guy and a good guy in our room, and it's a good room of guys right now. So happy he's here, and we try to be fair with anybody that comes here in terms of rewarding them if they're moving up the charts. So that's always a good thing. That's a fun thing.
Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. You talked a couple weeks ago about the cornerback competition, the guys that are in the mix there. Can you just describe as a unit and as individuals since the start of camp what you've seen from that group?
Yeah, they're all, you said cornerback, right? Outside guys. Yeah, they're all doing well. Jalen's been limited a little bit to soft tissue. Like every camp, you got some guys with football-type injuries. I skipped over the running back thing earlier, but kind of same discussion. I think we have a good pool of guys in both groups, and we'll certainly know more in about 3 weeks. But TJ, unfortunately, he had an injury, and we're lucky based on the way it looked, but it ended up being a bone-on-bone thing. So, he's got a bone bruise right now, which those are painful. It's probably going to be a week or two before he's back, but he was really doing well. Deshaun's doing a really nice job, and then Jalen's the next guy up. But it's giving these younger guys, Godfrey and Moda, a chance to work, and Shaheed joined us, Barrows. So, it just gives us a good chance to evaluate. But that's one that'll be ongoing, I'm sure. But the two older guys, TJ, till he got hurt 2 days ago, was doing really good. And same thing with Deshaun's playing well, too. So I think, as long as we keep improving, we'll end up okay there. Yep.
Ethan Petrick, Quad City Times. We hear about the 24-hour rule with your players a lot in a year where there's some big stuff out there for you personally. Yeah. What's your 24-hour rule look like? How do you spend those 24 hours after a game?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, really. First thing, when I was in the NFL, it's probably why I couldn't ever go back to the NFL. But anyway, the head coach where I worked at least had to go see the owner after the game. So, all I really wanted to do was get in my car and go home. That's all. It's simple, and it was that way as long as I've coached. When I was here in the 80s, if I was in a good mood, I would walk home through the parking lot. A friend of mine was always somewhere over that corner, and I'd stop and have a beer with him, and then I'd walk right over to our house. Took 10 minutes, 9 minutes, and I'd be on my couch. Life was good. If we lost, just kept going. No stopping, and no stopping at go for $200. So, that's kind of the model, and I worked for one guy that, I used to feel like I was stopping in his office on the way out of the stadium, and he's putting on his tie, and he had to go upstairs, and the owner was either, he'd typically been, having a few during the game, and so it was either the end of the world or the best thing in the world, and exactly what you don't want your players to do, that type of deal. And I was thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I could do that, because I got in my car, I went home. So that's what I do. I go home as fast as possible. It's a little tough when you're on the West Coast flying back through the night. It means you're home at 5:30 or whatever. I like to go home and try to get your mind off. That's impossible. But, you process it, and just like we tell the players, I mean, we come in and watch the tape, and you either feel really good or you feel bad. And but the biggest thing is learning from it on Sunday, and then you move on. And one good thing about practice Monday morning, we don't have time to, mourn things too long, and we don't have time to celebrate. We got to get moving on to the next team. And if you don't do that, you really give up.
Chris Maglo, the Daily Iowan. I wanted to ask about Jennings Dunker because you talked about the O-line a little bit. What have you seen from him from, his first year to now that's led him to the growth? He was named a preseason All-American. And how do you see him kind of leading this O-line throughout this next season?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jennings, if you meet him personally, it's a good exposure, just a really interesting guy. He could be on that beer commercial from 10 years ago. In fact, he'd be more eye-grabbing because of his, redheaded mullet. But, he's a highly intelligent guy, and, he hides it well sometimes. So it's interesting that way. He'll play games with you, but, man, I'll tell you, this guy works. And, talking about some of the other positions and certainly the offensive line, we had the group that he came in with, it was during the COVID period, just some really unusual stories, and, it was a bunch of them. And that you wonder about scoring points. It's hard to score points when you can't block. So that was part of it. But anyway, to his credit, he fought through he had some lower leg injuries that were impeding his progress and development, and offensive line's all about development. So, he's playing catch up that way, and he's just done a really nice job the last 2 years. Works like crazy, very coachable. He's got tremendous pride in the, guys that, obviously he's big and strong, but, and plays with good effort. But guys that play with effort and that have pride and have mental toughness, they have a chance to really become, as good as they can become. And I think, Jennings isn't there yet. He's got things he's working on right now, and he's gotten better in 8 practices. He's improved, I think, immensely in certain parts. And, that's what you want to see with your older guys. They're working just as hard as any young guy trying to figure out what they're doing. So that's really, he's a joy to coach. He's a lot of fun. Most of our guys are. They're just good guys to coach.
Hey, Kirk, all the way in the back here, Trey Redfield at Local 5. When it comes to the scoring points, and it comes to the total offense, the improvement from 23 to 24 was drastic, was really high. Why can we see another big jump offensively in 25 for your guys?
I don't mean to, I won't go off on too big of a tangent, but first of all, the objective is to win. That's really all we care about. But the best way to win is, points scored and points against. So that's where your focus is. But, every year is an adventure. Every team is an adventure. Every things happen during the course of a season too sometimes. And so you just deal with reality and try to find a way to get to the finish line. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that over the years, and we've, 26 years here, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have challenges. We're not, and I'll say this, we're not Ohio State. We never have been. We never will be. It might, make fans upset or whatever, but, history shows that. So we got to be comfortable with who we are and how we're going to be successful. And, if we have injuries in a certain area, then we're going to have to figure out a way to, to compensate or, get it done. Our most explosive offensive team in 26 years was 0-2, and we weren't exactly knocking it out defensively early, but the defense caught up, and, defense is what we built this thing on, and then we'll go off of that. And I say this program 26 years ago, and I learned that from my predecessor and other great coaches that I've had a chance to work with or watch. So it starts there. I just think defense travels well, and if you want to be a consistent winner, you better emphasize it. But we're trying to score points too, and whatever. So you do the best with what you can. And as I said a year ago, again, 26 years here, plus 9. When our line plays good and our quarterback plays good, that's a good start. We got a chance. And last year, we had the line play. We had all kinds of, ups and downs at quarterback, but we had a running back who, nobody was talking about exactly at this time of last year, and boom, blew up and just played great. And so that's kind of the history of our program too. Somebody's got to step up and get things done, because you're always going to lose good players. And but the bottom line is find a way to the finish line. And we've done a pretty good job of that the last 5 years, last 10 years. If you look at us relative to the other 17 teams in our conference, we're proud of where we're at. Yeah, we'd like to improve it, but we're going to just try to find a way. A little bit of luck. I think things are coming together offensively a little bit. And but who knows? tidal wave hits or whatever, and all of a sudden, you just never know what's going to be. So you got to be prepared to do what's best each and every week with the guys that can get to the game and play. But yeah, it's exciting right now just because I think we have a chance to have a little bit more balanced offensive football team than we've had over the last several years, really probably going back to 20. So, that's good. And it's always kind of funny, the 21 season, I think we won 10 games there. And I think our points per game there was exactly the same as 09. Pretty darn close if it wasn't, right? And Pat, we were good guys back in 09, right? In 21, we were all like bums, So it's funny how, I guess I do too much. I'm not trying to be a jag-off, but I mean, I study that stuff, right? It's just like, so, but winning the bowl game helps too, and we didn't do that in 21. And we had a chance. But we weren't quite good enough, and that's, you got to get over that hump, and the 09 team did that, so relatively the same statistics. So the bottom line is just, we got to figure out a way to win each and every week, and that's going to be our goal, our puzzle, and, let the games begin. But luckily we got 3 weeks here still to figure some things out. So appreciate it. We'll see you guys over there. Thank you.